Hey everyone, welcome back to the Redeem Her Time podcast. Today's conversation is going to be around what to do when you have a project that feels really big and your time doesn't quite feel enough, but you know it's something that you're called to. And I've invited Lori Melton, who not only is a friend of mine, but also a client of mine, to come on because Lori, you are working on a really big project right now. And we've been working together, and I can't wait for people to really kind of hear your story and get to know what it is that God has put on your heart. But let's kind of start outside of that first. Just tell us about this season of your life.
Mm.
Most of the women that I'm working with are, in a midlife season. So based on ages and stages of, when we got married and how old kids are,
Mhm.
things, a little bit different. But yeah, what does life look like for
Okay.
you outside of the thing that you're working on in the background?
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm a mother of six children, six adult children, and three are married. I have three grandchildren, so they're always a big part of my life. I also manage our retreat center. We have a retreat center, so we have people coming to our cabin, our prayer cabin, all the time. So I'm turning over the cabin, I'm taking reservations, talking to retreaters, things like that, and then active member of the my church and different things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love it.
So
Okay, I'm just thinking, do the math, right? Six kids, and then they are, adulting. So some people
yes.
are getting married and then having grandkids. Like, here's my little word to those of you with moms with kids under your roof. Life doesn't
Mhm.
get less busy when they leave the house. It's just a different kind of busy because you start
Right.
multiplying the people, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Maybe it takes more maturity. We're older, so
sure, sure.
you have more maturity to go like, okay, take a deep breath.
Right?
You can
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this,
And it's like more of a head and a heart, busy. I say that in air quotes versus a physical busy. Although when
yeah.
grandkids are nearby, like of course
Yeah.
you're spending time. So I love that.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
you mentioned, the retreat center that you have, which I think is so amazing. Just people being able to have a place to get away and meet with the Lord is so amazing. But tell us a little bit more about like the work that you do and how God
Hmm.
has called you to serve others. And I just like to hear a
Yeah.
little bit of how He brought you to doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Right now, I'm very involved with writing. I had always wanted to write, and it was something in college that I found that I had a gift for,
Mm.
and I put it on the shelf for the most part while we were raising our kids, and then during 2020, maybe like a lot of people, I was sitting down. We were all locked down, and I sat down with a piece of paper and wrote a list of, hey God, if I've got this time, how would you have me to spend it? And
Mm.
I made a list of probably 20 things of, okay, I could learn this, I could apply myself to this or this. And I paused at the end and then I thought, oh yeah, I want to learn how to write.
Mm.
But Lord, I think maybe you're tired of hearing that. I know my family's tired of hearing that. So maybe that won't even happen. Um, Lo and behold, though, the next day I got an email from Hope Writers offering 5 days of free workshops on writing. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going
Not a
to do that.
coincidence, right?
Yeah, not a coincidence. So I jumped into that and had the time during the COVID lockdown to start writing. And so that was, a number of years ago. And I was writing at that time also for our retreat center. I had started writing our newsletter. So I would write one article per month at first and then per week related to your spiritual growth. So I had that, and I was also starting to take classes at the spiritual formation classes at the Dominican Center, about a half an hour away from us. So I was becoming a spiritual director, and all these things were kind of coming together. This new stage of life was coming together.
Yeah. So now you're a writer, you're a spiritual director, you're this retreat center owner and
Yeah.
host
Mhm.
of all of these things. And yeah, God's kind of bringing it all together. And
Mhm.
I really want to dive into the writing piece because this is what you're
Yeah.
doing right now, right? I love that you said yes to writing a book. So first of all, tell us what is it called? Who's it for? What's it about? Kind of give us, a little bit of the background on it. And then I want to dive more into
Yeah.
kind of what this process has been like for you.
Yeah, yeah, it's called Journey with a Giant. Choose your guide, pursue your purpose, and grow in your walk with God. And it's for spiritually people who are hungry to grow in their relationship with God, and they're open to doing it maybe in a way that they have never thought of or known about before. I see it as like kind of where I was when this concept came to me. So I'll just tell you a little bit about how that happened. I when I started taking classes at the Dominican Center, one of the things that they had us do as a little part of our curriculum was they told us about, we studied spiritual giants, they called them, from history, different people who had walked faithfully with Christ.
Mm.
And that was great. But then it came to the time of the course where they said, now everybody, we want you to each pick one of these giants to walk with. They called it walking with a giant. And what that meant was you're going to study this person's life, how they came to know God, how they grew closer to God, their strengths, their weaknesses, things like that. And it was just going to be a little side note to our real curriculum for the class. And I wasn't really crazy about it because I was like, hey, I just worship Jesus. I just learn about
Mm.
Jesus. I'm focused on Jesus. But they were patient and they were like, no, we know that. But what I found was as I learned about the giant that I chose, I was in a period, I was just saying how God gave us the property we were on. He gave us this 20 acres, and then he put a vision in my husband and my heart to put a retreat center here. And I had been retreating for 20 years myself, and I had a desire to take other people on retreat with me. And so the giant that I chose was a woman named Evelyn Underhill, who lived in the 1950s in England. And she was a part of the Anglican Church, and she took people away, men and women, on retreat and taught them that everyone could hear the voice of God. And what that did for me at the time was I was a woman about the same age as she was, and I was doing the same thing that she was doing. So her story gave me courage to do what God had called me to do. So I was amazed at that. I was just kind of taking note. And then I was also watching my classmates who had chosen different spiritual giants. And I was watching how God was doing the same thing for them, the
Mm.
very things that they needed in their life, along with the other parts of their discipleship. This giant was playing a key piece in who God had them to be. So anyway, it was super fascinating. I continued my classes at Dominican Center and we had to pick different spiritual giants every year to study. And when I got out of the program, we were coming up to a new year. And I was out in our cabin, our prayer cabin, and I was asking the Lord how he would have me to grow closer to him in the year ahead. And as I thought about that, all of a sudden I thought, I miss having a spiritual giant in my life. I was out of the program, it wasn't assigned to me anymore. I know I'm going to pick a new giant. I think that's what God would have me to do as one of my ways to grow closer to him in the new year. And then I thought, people have been asking me to teach them how to do this. Maybe I should, maybe as I'm doing this, walking with a giant, I've been writing. Maybe I should write articles as I go about what God is doing in my life as I walk with my giant. And that could be an illustration for other people about if they're walking with their own giant. I don't know if you remember, but a few years ago, there was a series out by a spiritual director called Sensible Shoes. Did you remember
I
that series?
actually have that. Yes, I've read the first three books of it. So yes, I love it.
Yes. So Sharon Brown, she's a spiritual director. She actually lived in Grand Rapids. And that story, when I read that story, after I read it, I thought, Sharon, you have just done something so powerful because you put into story spiritual practices, growth practices that would be uncomfortable for us if we're not used to them, but putting them in the context of a story, all of a sudden your guard goes down. And at the end of each chapter about these four friends and trying one of these spiritual practices, she has a little application that says, now, if you want to try this, do this. So in those, you know how quick that God does things sometimes in our giving us ideas. So in the cabin, as I'm thinking, I want to walk with a giant. Yes, maybe I should write about it, and that will be an illustration. I remember sensible shoes. And I'm thinking that's what I want to do with walking with a giant. I want to put the practice into the story of my year, but have it be walking the reader through their own year with their own giant at the same time they're reading my story. So that's what I did, and it took a whole year to do it. And right away, a couple months in, a friend of mine, these friends of mine have been watching me walk with giants for years, right? And none of us do this, none of us have ever heard of it. But a friend called me and said, "Hey, you know that thing, Walking with Giants, that you do?" I'm like, "Yes.
Yeah.
Is it biblical? Like, is it biblical?" And then so we talked about whether, yes, it's biblical. And she said, "I kind of want to do that. Can I do that with you?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm actually writing a book about it right now. I don't have anything formal, but we can walk together." So we just started, she was walking with her giant, me with mine, and then we would meet once a month and talk about it. And then another friend joined us, and that turned into groups doing it each year and things like that. So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
love it. It's like something that was very personal and that you were even like skeptical and apprehensive of became this
yes.
spiritual practice that brought so much growth in you that other people were seeing it, getting curious about it, and then God says, "Okay, now it's time to write about it." So you
Yeah,
mentioned, of course, my time radar went up. You mentioned that the
yeah,
writing of the book took an entire year. That is a
yeah.
long time,
So
like
long.
12 months, 365 days, and I'm sure you weren't writing like, every single day of that time. But like, I'm curious because I didn't know you during this part of the process. Like, how was
Yeah.
time a challenge for you in that part of the process? Because let's be honest, we have the attention span of a goldfish or less than. So, hello,
Yes.
squirrel. Like, we're just like, so long-term
Yeah.
projects like that, I can only, I
Yeah.
know, right, from doing one of my own, what that takes. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
Yeah, it was a huge time commitment. I really believed in it. And I was on this, see, I was on this spiritual adventure journey with my own giant. So that kept me grounded, plus like committed to it. Plus I knew that I had to write the content. I at least had to throw it down on the page. Like I say, I drafted it that year and the publisher was like, "Oh yeah, you have it written already, so you can get it to us quickly." I'm like, written is kind of a loose term, you
Or
know?
loose term. What do you mean
Um,
by?
yeah, yeah. So I had to cut other things.
Sure.
And this was a period of time where my kids I was a brand new empty nester. And before this time, I homeschooled the kids, I assisted my husband in his businesses, and I was a homemaker. So nothing revolved around like mom's got this interest that she needs time for. So it was a kind of a painful reshaping time, and I knew this. I knew God was saying to me, "I've got some new things for you." I call that stage my new thing stage. "I've got some new things for you, but you're going to have to be a little bit of a different person than you have been, and
Mm.
it's going to be painful. You're going to have to say what you want and need. You're going to have to, sometimes I had to miss some of the stuff that I normally would be a part of and just say, I can't, I've got a writer's conference. I can't, I've got to finish this chapter." And that could be days. That could be, I mean, but it was so important to me. And I felt like, one of your big terms is stewardship. Like we are stewards. And at that time in my life, I could have so easily just slipped into what I'd always been or what other people wanted me to, I felt like they wanted me to be.
Mm.
I knew in that moment, I'm 50 some years old. This is my push. This is my last push. So I need to hear from you, Lord, what it is I'm supposed to do. And then I need to guard that and I need to steward it. And I'm the only one who can do it. I wait for permission a lot of times from other people
Mm.
instead of going like, "No, you need to steward this.
Yeah.
If this is
Yeah.
what you need to do, tell people." Like I remember my husband saying, "Tell me what you want." And I'm like, "I can't. What do you want? What do they want? What do they?" No, tell me what you want. Tell me what you need. And it was incredible when I would say, "I can't do that. I need 2 hours to write." How they'd go, "Okay." And I thought, why haven't I been doing this all my life?
Right?
Why
Like, who
haven't I
knew
been
healthy
saying?
boundaries were actually good for everybody? Oh,
Oh my gosh.
oh my
So,
goodness. Yeah.
yeah, so I knew it was a calling.
Yeah.
It was an area
Yeah.
that I loved, that I saw God bringing to life. Like this desire to write that I put aside 30 some years ago, here he was bringing it up again.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was something I felt like, don't let this slip by. I don't know
Sure.
if it's going to turn I thought I would self-publish it, but I didn't know what it would turn into, but I knew I wanted to steward it.
Yeah, I love that. And you know this, I literally just recorded an interview yesterday and the topic was stewarding your story. And I
Yeah.
tied time into it because so often, like you're right, like we say, I'm just busy, right? And so we don't steward our story well, whether it's really writing something out on paper or whether it's just like sharing out loud our Jesus story or just our person,
Mm.
like our history or things like that and having conversations. And it's so easy for
Yeah.
time to become the obstacle to stewarding our story. And like you said, you have this like healthy urgency because it's a calling and because it's something that, God has very clearly said, this is what you're going to do. And so you're like, okay, I'm going to have to
Yeah.
make changes. I'm going to have to, that's what a
Mhm.
steward does. They're not just looking for a comfort zone. They're like, okay, I've been entrusted with this thing, this
Yep.
mission, this message, this, time, this business, this ministry. How do I, make time for it with healthy boundaries? This is what I love because healthy
Hmm.
boundaries allow what's inside to flourish and grow.
Hmm.
And so that's such a beautiful picture, right? So
Yes.
I love
Yes.
that, just how you tied that in there and not waiting for permission from other
Yes. Not,
people.
we do it so much.
We do
Yes.
it so much. It's one of the shuns I teach on is, and I think they go together, expectations and obligations. So expectations what
Yeah.
others want of us and obligations what we think that we have to do for everyone else, and I think
Right.
especially as women who have
Yes.
probably our whole life been about serving our family and not don't worry about me and I'm good and, all of
Mhm.
that.
Yep. Yep.
So you
Well,
wrote the
and
book, you had the draft.
yes.
And it didn't end up in just a self-publishing. So
No,
tell us,
it
like,
didn't.
yeah, I
Well,
mean, you've got a contract with a big name publisher, and yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of the one in a million type of story, I feel like. The cool thing about the whole process, even while I was cutting things,
Mm.
having to stand up for what I knew God had called me for, was that God was bringing me like confirmation from other people and resources that this is something special.
Yeah.
Don't let this just don't look at this too lightly. Like first of all, sending me people that wanted to walk with giants right away. Then a friend like, you got to go to a writers conference, and I'm like, no, no, I'm good. So people, she tells me I got to go to a writers conference. Another friend gives me a name of a well-known writer in our area who ended up coaching me, loving the idea. Hope Writers offering courses. So there was all these resources coming. And all I really did was one step at a time, just said, I see this resource in front of me. This person is saying this about this book, and I feel like that's unusual.
Mm.
Like I was at a writers conference sitting next to a more established writer, and she was asking me what I was writing about, and I told her, and there were editors and publishers there that you could get 15-minute one-on-ones with. And she's like, you got to go over there and sign up for a one-on-one, and you got to talk to those people. And I'm like, no, no, I'm a new writer. I'm just going to self-publish. She says, you have something. Go sign up. And I signed up, not knowing what I was going to do, stumbled through that. So it was like one thing at a time. People were just pushing me forward, and I would meet people, and the next piece would fall into place. So, so that's what happened as I drafted the book. I ended up getting connected with a well-known writer who coached me. And then she started telling me, even before I was done with the book draft, you got to write a book proposal. And I was like, I don't know how to write a book proposal. I'm working on the book. No, you have to write it now. Ended up that Hope Writers was offering a class at that point, a 6 weeks class that ended up, and it was during the summer. It was terrible timing. I was going to miss half of the classes, but I just thought, I need to do this. Anne tells me I need to do this. And even if I only have half of it done by the time, in the fall, I'll be half done.
Sure.
Well, come to find out that I was signed up for the Hope Writers conference in the fall. And there was a class going to start in the fall for people who had written their book proposals to be able to pitch at that conference. Little did I know that I having that partially done book proposal put me in line to take that next class, and then I got to pitch to InterVarsity at my dream publisher originally, at that conference. And they
Wow.
started pursuing they loved it. I was the first one-on-one for InterVarsity. I walked in, I had prepared, they prepared me really well. I had 15 minutes to share what this was and to tell why it mattered and give her a packet. She sat there, she listened, she said, I love it. Send me everything you have. And I walked out and I went, I
That was
think that just
easy.
went, I think that just went as good as it could have gone. So that happened. We were in months of negotiations with that. That one didn't come through. But then as I continued leading groups, working on the proposal, I ended up talking to that same publisher again at another conference. And she said to me, "Are you pitching your book?" And I said, "No, I'm working on it. I'm leading groups." And she said, "Do you want a traditional publisher?" And I said, "I do, but," and she said, "Go home, get your proposal, do whatever editing you want to do, and start pitching."
Hmm.
So I listened. I went home and I paid for editing, and then I thought I want to get an edit. I want to get an agent if I can. And I knew of a couple agents, and I pitched to a couple agents, and I was too small. I didn't have any platform. I didn't have any. And that agent or that, yeah, that agent said to me, I can't take you, but can I give you two names of two publishers that this might be a good fit for? And I said, yep, absolutely. Thank you. In the meantime, I was signing with a different agent, and I handed over those contacts to that agent, not knowing that one of them was a division of Penguin Random House. And so we started pitching. She sent the first ones out in early September. Two, and one of those was that Penguin Random House. It's called Ink and Willow, the division. And within a month, they were back to us. We love this. We had Zoom meetings, and I had a contract by December. And
Wow.
then I was off and writing. I
And
was
here's
off
what I
writing.
hear. Like, God did not give you the whole plan before you started on this, right? Like you were just faithful to take the next step. And God just like so, I mean, I'm thinking of Proverbs, right? In his heart, a man plans his steps, but the Lord is the one who establishes them, right? Like, you couldn't have expected these different opportunities, just even what the next level was going to take, the timing, speaking of timing of you taking that class, which allowed you to, kind of be ready for the next thing, which wasn't even really the person, but then they introduced you to the person and kept pushing you. And like I just
Yeah.
hear like how all these things are coming together and how God is really, like he has the plan. And so I just want to encourage anyone listening, if you feel like your project is way bigger than you and you're not sure how you would even do it, it's okay.
Yes.
Lori is evidence that when God
Hmm.
is in it, he will make a way and he will show you the
Yes.
way as you go. And
Mhm.
it will be such a way more beautiful adventure than if it was all mapped out pretty on paper, and all of
Yes.
and so
It
you
kind
and
of
I
is.
met when you were ready
Yeah.
to step into launch phase. And so you have
Yes.
this, big five publisher. And,
Hmm.
like there are a lot of moving pieces that come
Hmm.
with launching a book, right? Um, so like, yeah, maybe kind of real quickly, just kind of for those, and again, I want you guys listening as an audience member. Maybe you're not writing a book, but maybe you've
Right.
got this big thing on your, plate or whatever. And so it's really easy to get bogged down in like all the details of it. So I want you like maybe describe like how did you
Yeah.
come to me? Like what were some of the things that are on your plate? How are you feeling? I remember you
Yeah.
telling me that you already had kind of a 12-week plan where it was like you knew your launch date, which is coming up in November. We'll
Hmm.
make sure to share that at the end so people can follow and get the book when it comes out. And you had all this laundry list of things to do. So like kind of tell me, when you and I came together, how are you feeling about all these things and the quote plan that you had at the time?
Yeah. I couldn't breathe.
Uh,
I mean, there was so much that I wanted to do. And, I believe in this book so much, and I'm a planner. Like, people who know me are like, you are so organized. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I live by lists. I live by plans. I make plans for the year, the month, the week, the day. I mean, I have all that. And I had just read the book, The 12-Week Year.
mm,
And I thought, I love this. Instead of just planning for the year, I'll plan for a quarter. Yes, let's do this. I wrote it all out, but it was still all in big chunks. And, after you write a book, you've got huge things to do. If you want that book to sell, you've got to have, as a new author, you have to have an author website. You have to have an email list that you're growing, consistently growing. You want to have some way that you're going to promote it. Like, what's your big marketing plan? And for me, that was podcasting. I have a podcast, and I thought, oh, I'm going to do a podcast series about walking with a giant, which is a great idea, but it's a huge amount of work.
sure.
A book launch team, you want to have a book launch team. If you're gonna have a book launch celebration, what is that going to look like? Who are you going to invite? How is that going to be more than just a party where you dump a lot of money and actually have some assets come out of it? And I need a small group study guide.
Yeah.
So, so when I came to you, I think I was at the point where my author website was done. Thank God. That takes months. If anybody's done one, they know. We were just starting the podcast series for Journey with a Giant. But I had to get together a book launch, get together a book celebration, which is a lot of moving pieces if you want it to be, you want to have some good things after you're done with it. And I still had the book discussion guide. And turns out Penguin contracted with me for an audiobook of Journey with a Giant, which is amazing. And I thought they were going to have a professional narrator. I thought that was just the unspoken, that's the way it's going to go. It's, you're going to have a professional narrator. But when they got a hold of me in August after we were working together, actually I was an option to record the audiobook and I felt God calling me to do that. And so all of a sudden I'm like, and where am I going to get that time?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was all big pieces with general, like in this month I need to do this, and this month I need to do that.
Yeah.
But it was overwhelming because I was like, it's just too big. My mind was going, I was getting paralyzed
Yeah.
because it was too big.
Yeah, we just get overload, and I think we should. What do we do? We shut down, right? If I'm having to hold
Yeah.
too much in my head, or I'm making too many decisions, or I'm trying to, like think about this whole big giant ball, right, of all of these things and this date that's looming that I'm trying to get to, it can be very overwhelming and paralyzing, like you said. And so obviously, that wasn't a plan or a solution that was doable or desirable for you because you weren't going to be
Yeah.
healthy, in your relationship with the Lord and even your relationship with your family and yourself and things like that. So, talk about like how us working together helped you to really like take this really big project and
Yeah.
this like, Lisa, I only have so much time and I don't feel like it's enough. But how did this
Mhm.
process help you to identify the priorities and then map out a plan that was different than just what you had thrown down on paper after reading the book? And how, yeah, like kind of maybe how was that, what was that process like and how was it different from what you had coming
Yeah.
in? Which was better
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
most people. A lot of people don't even get to that point of like even saying this is what I'm going to do, planning a 12-week, plan. So I want to give you kudos for that.
Yeah, yeah. So I brought the big chunks. I was a part of your community, but I also scheduled for the 4-hour strategic planning session.
Mhm.
And that's where I was able to bring like, okay, Lisa, I have these huge things. And you're like, so then what we did was you put it on a whiteboard, all the big pieces, and then broke it down into line items, and then took out the calendar and said, okay, working backwards, you
Mhm.
need to do this piece of this task this week and this piece and this week. So seeing it in black and white, I remember us talking about the book launch team, and when we actually mapped that out, you were like, okay, so you want a book launch team, you wanted to run this many weeks, and as we planned out when I would need that list made and start inviting people, it was the next week,
Yeah, it
and
was
I was
like,
like,
we're starting this
what?
now. I remember that.
I did not even realize that. And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, and then I went into kind of panic mode because I had a huge week the following week. And I was like, Lisa, I can't, I've got 100 people. My dream would be 100 people to ask, how am I going to do this? And then what you did was you said, hold on. What if you did 25? Could we just write 25 on next week and
Yeah,
then 25 on the next week? And I went, okay, yeah, I can do that. And you even talked me through like, here's all you need to say in that email or invitation is just this. And I'm writing it down and I get, you get the recording after you're done with these planning sessions. That is gold because I went back then and I wrote it and reestablished what was when. So it just kind of broke it down into week by week so that I could go, I can do this. And I'm not going to like, I'm not feeling like I got to cry. I'm going to cry all the time.
yeah.
It's just too heavy.
And you're not trying
So,
to hold it all in your head. This is the one thing I find people do is it's like they have this big project, they have lots of moving parts, there are lots of timelines and to-dos and things like that. And it's like they feel the weight of it all at once. And that
yeah.
makes everything really hard in the whole process. Whereas when we did this, remember you
Hmm.
and I having this conversation, like if it's week one, all you have to think about is what the week one stuff is because everything else lives in a week that's coming up and you don't need to worry about it right now because it's not time for it.
Right.
So, and you
Yeah.
even had some like, some things come in where I think even around the time we made the plan, it was shortly thereafter that you found out about this audio
The
recording. So
audiobook.
now you were like, Lissa, what do I do with my
Yes.
plan? So then we got to work
Yes.
through how do you adapt it when like life happens. And it was, of course, a great opportunity that you weren't going to say no to because hello,
I
getting to narrate your
know.
own book is amazing. And so we were able to like kind of walk through like, okay,
Yeah.
because this happens to so many people, you get a plan on paper and it's pretty on paper, and then life hits and you're
Yeah.
like, and then
Well,
we tend to, yeah, throw it out the
it's like
window.
the value of partnership.
Mm,
It's such I couldn't have done this alone, and we shouldn't do it alone.
yeah,
It's too much for us to do alone.
yeah,
And even like, okay, so we work through the strategic session, and then we're in contact about how it's going. And then when I had the shift with the audiobook, because I was in the community, I could reach out to you and say, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And you said, hold on. And then we reworked it. Like
yeah,
if I would have just read a book and not had a community or someone like you to say, I've got this real life challenge, it would still all be on me. And
sure.
I don't, that's crushing.
Yeah.
So it's super great just to have the community and you to say, help me figure this out where
Yeah.
I am right
And I
now.
think that's the key, right? Because again, we can read a book, we can make a plan, but it's that implementation piece. It's the sticking with it,
Yeah.
over a 12-week period of time, and essentially I'm thinking about, like what if you would have had this process back when you wrote your book? That's
Hmm.
just what I did for
Yeah.
my planner. My planner was a 12-month project and I broke it down to four 12-week cycles that I had a
Yeah.
very specific roadmap for each cycle. And I didn't have to worry about phase three when I was on phase one, right? And
Yes.
so it does. It just kind of really helps move things along without the stop
Mhm.
start and the overwhelm and all of that. And
Yes.
here you are.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
you're just under 2 months to launch date.
Yeah.
You've got a launch team of more people than you were even anticipating were going to say yes. Like you and I
Yeah.
were just talking about that before we hit record. I'm so excited, right? Like, how are you feeling now? Right? Because you're still in the
Yeah.
midst of this. You're not on the other side. Tell us what your
Yes.
launch date is, so that way we all know
Yeah.
what it is. But like, yeah, how are you feeling just kind of even in this place as you're seeing some progress, but yet there's
Yeah.
still a lot more left to do?
Yes. I mean, I'm feeling great, actually. I mean, I have people around me watching this and going, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm really okay. I'm doing great. I've got a great team of people around me. And I mean, the concept of what is it time for
Yeah.
is a huge thing that you talk about too, where, being able to take one major priority at a time, and then the other ones, like last week, it was my launch team because they're starting this week.
Mm.
And now I'm going to get my launch team rolling. Well, then it's going to be time for, okay, book discussion guide's going to come. Small group discussion guide is going to come in. So I think because we laid it out
Mhm.
and I'm in process with those pieces, and I've got some other people in process working with me on my launch celebration, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's gonna be great. And all I really have to do is follow the program,
Yeah. And keep
and then
listening to the
reach out.
Lord, right? Like there's that in there as well. And here's the
Yes.
thing, like you and I are not going to say this isn't work. Like you
Oh
are in a
gosh.
season of intense focus and it's for a season, right? That's okay for there to be a season of like I am just really pushing in a way that I haven't before, blinders on and
Yeah.
like you said, maybe saying no to some things I typically would say yes to for a season
Yeah.
to birth this thing, into the world. And yet you still have time for your grandkids. You still
Yeah.
have time
Yeah.
for yourself. You still have time that you're spending with your husband and, going down to visiting your mom and seeing your sister and, like all these things
Yeah.
that life is still happening and yet there's still forward progress, in all of this. And so I love this. So I would love to end this conversation before, and then I want to hear, I want you to share about where we find the book and all the good things, right? But before we end
Yeah.
this section, like,
Mhm.
there's so many women out there. We've just come off a masterclass. We're really talking about Q4 and, and what do we really want to see happen in the next 90 days, and you are
Mhm.
actually walking out this 12-week year philosophy with support and seeing the difference. So
Mhm.
what would you say to somebody who's maybe got this thing that God's put on her heart? Maybe she's kicked the can down the road all year and now she's at this place in the year, or maybe it's just been this really slow, like, everything just
Mhm.
feels really heavy. Maybe what encouragement would you give her about not
Yes.
doing it alone and jumping into
Yes.
something like CEO Focus?
Yeah, like I said earlier, the partnership is critical. It's the way God designed things to work. We were never meant to do things alone. And we get this individualistic mindset, like we're gonna do it alone. But if you look around you at who God has provided that could help you with what he's put on your heart, and then trust that. Take the step to make the commitment to a group or a coaching call, and then follow the plan. Then go back to those people when you're like, okay, I'm doing great, but I'm a little confused about this or that. Let that piece work, and then just enjoy the divine adventure, like the God adventure that you're on. Just like with my story, where it was like, I'm taking this write your proposal course. I'm not able to be at all the Zoom meetings. I don't know if I'm going to get, but look what was waiting after that. It's going to be so messy. It's going to be so
Okay.
messy, but it's an adventure. And then like after you get your messy part done right here, some parts will be glorious, other parts will be like, oh my gosh. There'll be something, there'll be another step, there'll be another person, another resource that'll be like, and now I'm farther down the road and I was faithful.
Yeah, yeah,
So
I
that's
love
the
that.
that's the beautiful life, the abundant life that God offers us.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Such a beautiful picture. We were not created to do any of this alone, especially when there's a big project or mission or ministry or business that God has put on our heart. And so I love being able to, yeah, cheer other women on like you and see, the fruit literally being produced right in front of our eyes. It's such a beautiful thing. So if
Yeah.
you guys are interested, like if you want to know more about, what it would look like to come into a way to kind of map out a 12-week plan and have support around it. I will drop the link to that. It's redeemhertime.com/focus dash info. Go check it out. There are opportunities to get more one-on-one level attention like Lori did, or you can just come into the group one. But yeah, don't let that project just sit there. Let's see what God would have for you even before the end of the year. So I love this, Lori, and thank you so much
Yeah.
for being here. So I know everyone who's listening today, including myself, is going to want to get our hands on Journey and a Giant. So when is it
Yes.
available? And then how, in the meantime, can we get this free download of your book, and where do we go to find that?
Yeah. Yeah. The official release date is 11/11. That's Veterans Day, 11/11/25. It's available now for pre-order in print or audiobook. And you can go to my website, lauragmelton.com. And on there, I've got a free download. It's called a sneak peek of the introduction and chapter one to the book, which actually tells you about the concept of walking with giants and then how to choose your own giant. So it's a really great way to get oriented to, oh my gosh, what is this? I'm so intrigued.
I
So go
love it.
ahead and do that. And then our podcast series that's running right now is on the Sanctuary Stirrings. That's the name of our podcast.
Yeah.
And there that you'll find the 12-week Journey with a Giant series. And if you go back to episode one of that, it's a powerful introduction and then how the book was born and that type of thing. So
We'll make sure
super
to
fun.
link to all of that down in the show notes so you guys can go follow this podcast. You can get a download of this first chapter. You can pre-order your book. It's such a beautiful thing that you're putting out in the world, Lori, and I'm so glad that you are stewarding, right, this really well and walking forward and all of that. And you guys know I always invite my guests into the Redeem Her Time community where Lori is already a member. So come on in and ask her questions, whether you're a writer or you just, maybe have a God-sized dream on your heart and you want to know like what it's like to take on something that feels bigger than you. Like I think this is a great opportunity for us to really get to know each other and take that in. So come join us over inside the Redeem Her Time community. We'll link to that in the show notes as well. So Lori, I know you've got a lot going on. And right now I know you're like heads down, like, all steam, full steam ahead to, November 11th. But like, let's pretend like all this is over and it's November
Yeah.
12th. Now I know you're still
Mm,
working on discussion guides and stuff like that, but like what will it be time for, in
yeah.
that next season for you?
Yeah, it will be time to just celebrate. Praise God. I know we talked about this when I was in my strategic planning. You said you need to plan your a reward or a celebration after you're done with your big goal. And what would be a great celebration to me would be to go on retreat. I love leading retreats. I love going on retreats. And I said, I would love to take a couple days and just go on retreat somewhere beautiful and just praise God for this whole journey. That to me would be amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, I can't
yeah.
wait to see the pictures from that. And I can't wait to, yeah, see all the things that are going to be happening in the next few weeks and who you're becoming. I think that's the big part. When we are doing something like this and it's way beyond us, it's about who God is making us into in the process to be, trusting Him in a deeper way. And so that's going to bear fruit as well. So thanks so much, Lori, for being with us today,
Yeah.
for sharing your story. Can't wait to read your story as it comes out. And yeah, we'll be connecting over
Yeah.
inside the community.
Awesome. Thanks you, Lisa, for your help. I couldn't have done it without you. This would
Oh
be
my
a very
goodness.
different Lori sitting here if I hadn't have met you. So thank you for your help.
This is what I love doing. So it's just so fun to see you walking through this. So thank you.